Hello, all. Keeping you on your toes once again with some non Yu Gi Oh content. And based on the title, and of course, what you see here on the screen, amid every single ad that I unfortunately cannot get rid of. So get used to that for the rest of the video, and my apologies for that. Anyway, we are doing a ranking of every single episode of Avatar The Last Airbender. And I want to lay out some criteria when I do that. First and foremost, of course, I'm doing this because it is my favorite show of all time. I have favorite movies, I have favorite media that I like, but this is my favorite TV show in general of all time. So as soon as I started doing these little side tangent videos, I always wanted to be able to do this one. And I got nothing else going on right now, so I figured now is the time to do it. But the criteria for this, there's only a little bit. Of course, you only see the one row here. I'm not doing, S tier, A tier, any of those, because I personally think that there is no such thing as a quote unquote bad episode of Avatar. Even the weaker episodes, the skippable ones, and if you know the show, then you know the episodes that I'm talking about, and I'll mention them as we come to them. Even the weaker episodes, I still get some enjoyment out of watching them. So I don't really think there's a bad episode of Avatar. So I'm all just going to be putting them, yes, in order of what I think is the best one, but not in a hard, S tier through F tier format, because that would just get too complex and make my job even more difficult. And I am not in the business of making my life more difficult where I don't have to. The other criteria that I have, there are a few episodes that either release together and are meant to be viewed as one, or just some that outright say parts one and two. The ones that were released together, I'm not necessarily going to be ranking as one episode, but the ones that are parts one and two, I will be. So, for example, there are three groupings of episodes that involve a part one and two, and that's the Siege of the North, the Day of Black Sun, and The Boiling Rock. Those I will be ranking as one episode, whereas episodes that were released together, like for example, I'm pretty sure the first two episodes, the pilot episodes, were released as one. I will still be ranking those separately. Um, I think The Serpent's Pass and The Drill were released together as the whatever they called it, Secret of the Fire Nation. I'm pretty sure. And then other examples like the Sozin's Comet last four episodes were all released together. Those I will all still be ranking separately. And the reason that I am doing that is because, yes, they are technically together as one event, but they do deserve to be ranked as separate episodes because they do, for the most part, tackle different themes and different events going on even within their episode. Whereas they went out of their way to label each of these other ones parts one and two. And ranking these as separate episodes, I think, would be a little disingenuous because for the most part, for a majority of these episodes, episode one would be much lower down on the ranking because for pretty much all of these, it's just a setup for episode two. For example, if I were to rank the Boiling Rock separately, Boiling Rock Part One is pretty much just the setup of what's going to happen in episode two. They go to the prison. Is Sokka's father there? If he is, then how do they get him out? And then episode two is the actual execution of that, which is usually going to be a lot stronger. I don't think that's as I don't think that's as fair to the episode to be able to split them up like that. So the three clusters of episodes that are together as parts one and two, I will be ranking as one episode. Whereas all the other episodes that were released together, like Sozin's Comet, the pilot episodes, I will still be ranking as separate episodes. So with that, let's just go ahead and get started. We of course have to start with the beginning, the boy in the iceberg. Pretty much nothing special to say about this. It's the pilot episode. It's what got the show started and just introduced us to the world and to a lot of our initial characters. With episode two, obviously the Avatar Returns is going to be a little bit better. This is just the introduction to the world, and then this is the first instance we get to see of the interaction of a lot of our main characters, a lot of the payoffs for what was happening in here, and the start of the journey for our characters. Not the ultimate big start of ending the war and all that, but just Aang's return and their grouping together as the initial formings of the gang. We don't have everybody yet, and there's a lot of development to go after that. Southern Air Temple is, of course, going to go right after. Oh, I have these. I have these in reverse. It should be the other way around. There we go. Southern Air Temple is better of all this. This is where we get a lot of the history of the air nomads. This is where Aang unfortunately realizes that his people have been slightly genocided, and his realization of being the last airbender and what has happened to his people. And it's really fascinating that a kids show did this, and then we get a lot of we get an introduction very early on that this show will be dealing with a lot of dark themes, even in what is quote unquote a kids show. So that was really fascinating to see in all this, and just even the amount of times I've rewatched that, I always just love coming back to that episode and what it's done. Kyoshi Warriors, we get. I don't know if I want to put this after. For now, I think I'll put it after, just under Avatar Returns, just because we really only get like a mild introduction to the Kyoshi Warriors. Suki will be a bigger part in book 2. But the fascinating part about this is we start to get a lot of development from Sokka, because he finally starts to wake up to the fact that he is not the big shot that he thought it would be, and this is where we get the start of his big character arc of who he thinks he is, and then coming to the realization of actually being that, except not being a dick about it. I'd still put it under Avatar Returns for now, because this is the big start to everything. We really get to see where everybody comes into their own at the beginning of the show, and we get their start. King of Omashu, it's kind of skippable. Honestly, I'm gonna put it underneath Boy in the Iceberg, because this is an episode that kind of feels like, well, it halfway feels like filler, but not really, because this is where we get the introduction to Omashu, and that becomes important in book 2, because we see the Fire Nation has taken it later on, and this establishes who Boomy is, his relationship to Aang, and then what happens to them later on. But this individual episode, just the challenges really aren't all that captivating, and then the stakes of it kind of all get undone when you realize that Boomy's just kind of screwing with Aang, because they used to be friends, and he's like, hey, recognize who I am, and then at the end he actually does recognize who he is. And it just, on rewatches of that, the stakes just don't feel as high, because you know what's going on, so it's harder to get invested in it. So it's still good, still fun episode, but just it loses a lot of its weight once you realize what's going on. Imprisoned is also kind of I mean, Haru really doesn't show up that much. We see him again way later on when the eclipse happens and the day of Black Sun. But honestly, nothing really much comes from him. The episode kind of, I mean, we get a little bit of Katara's character development here, kind of her coming into her own, but it's just not all as much captivating. I'm definitely putting it under Boy in the Iceberg, but I don't know if it's. Do I like this better than King of Omashu or not? Yeah, I think I'm gonna have this as the last one so far, because this one at least sets up something cooler. With this, it's just kind of, well, we do get a little bit of a payoff later on of Zuko using what happens at the end of this episode to trap Katara. Nah, I'll put it over. It's hard to get invested in this episode. This one's a little, I guess, slightly more investing, because we get to see the prison break. We get to see the setup of Katara losing her necklace and then Zuko trapping her with it. Yeah, I'll put it there for now. Spirit World, this episode is going to be a little bit weaker than the next one, because this episode is just kind of meant to set up the next episode where he travels to the island to meet Roku, and then we get the real stakes of the series with Sozan's Comet and the ultimatum to beat the Fire Lord before the end of the war, otherwise the world will be destroyed. But this episode kind of suffers as a result of that. The conflict with Heibai really isn't as important by contrast. Although we do have Aang get the introduction to the spirit world, to the previous Avatar. It's kind of neat, but the stakes of the episode as a whole just don't really hold up as much. I'd still probably put it in front of the Kyoshi Warriors, if I had to say, because we do get a neat introduction into the spirit world with that, but I wouldn't call it as cool as Avatar. Yeah, it's not as cool as Avatar Returns, where we start to really learn about the. Well, no, I'm gonna put it there for now. I'll come back to it if I want to change it. Avatar Roku. I gotta put it above this. We get to learn a little bit more about Roku's past. We get the ultimatum of the show, and the stakes, immediately jump up to 11, and then you really start to feel the characters be on a timeline because of that. And just the scene of Roku temporarily coming back and then just tearing that place apart is just so much fun. It's so great. I love that. Waterbending Scroll is kind of like one of those whatever episodes. It kind of has that filler feel to it as well. You get neat interactions with Zuko's character and the payoff of Katara's necklace having been stolen, but it's nothing all that serious. I'll put it. I either want to put it in front of Kyoshi Warriors or after, and I'm not really sure which one. The Kyoshi Warriors at least come back later on. The pirates aren't really all that special and not really all that memorable, so I'll put it there for now. Jets, this episode, not one of the greatest, but we do get once again the demonstration that the show is not afraid of darker themes. I mean, you literally have children soldiers who have radicalized themselves because of war. That's that's pretty heavy-handed for something that is supposedly a kid show, and then you have them willing to murder an entire village of people, yes, who are Fire Nation, but who are technically innocent in that of it. And it's kind of cool to see. Jets, whatever. He comes back later a little bit more interesting when he starts to have the conflict with Zuko and Ba Sing Se. But I mean, it's obviously going under Southern Air Temple. That episode's just great. Avatar Returns. I don't know if I put it above that. Yeah, I'll put it. This feels correct for now. I'll come back to it later. Great Divide is going underneath all of these. This is this is the most. I'll still watch it because again, there are individual parts of each episode that I still think are enjoyable and worth it. But the Great Divide is unironically one of the worst episodes of Avatar. You could skip over it and lose pretty much nothing. It's I'm pretty sure they're going to do that with the live action Netflix series of this show. If they include any of this bit in that show, I will be surprised. The Storm is going at the top. This is one of the best episodes of the series as a whole, but especially as season one. Learning the origins of Aang and of Zuko, just beautiful execution of this. It's just nothing more to say about that. It's beautiful. Blue Spirits. This is where we get to. This is where we first start to see the inklings that Zuko and Aang can get along, even if they are still vehemently against each other. Zuko is willing to go to extremes to let no one else have Aang, even if he has to betray his own nation and his own people to do it, which is pretty neat. The archers, I think they're called the Yu Yan. They're cool, but like we don't really see them in much else for whatever reason. Zhao's kind of forgettable in this episode. I think I put it. It's definitely going under Avatar Roku, and it's probably going under Southern Air Temple, but it is above Avatar Returns. And I don't know if I care about it more than Southern Air Temple. I don't think I do. I'll leave it here for now. Fortune Teller is kind of another weak episode. You do get the neat interaction of once we learn later on what happened to Avatar Roku, you get to see the fulfillment of Aang actually beating a volcano while Roku lost to it, which is a kind of little neat interaction, but just kind of forgettable. It's definitely above the Great Divide. Yeah, it's under King of Omashu. I'd rather watch King of Omashu than that. Bato is a little bit of a weaker episode. The Sheer Shoe is kind of cool. June is neat, but I mean, diehard fans of this episode really just like it because they're simps for June. But this episode teases the fact that they can maybe see their dad, and then Aang and the Aang, Sokka, and Katara may split up in this, but this episode really isn't as much of one to get invested in. Aang gets Katara's necklace back, but it's whatever. I might put it above Imprisoned. No, it's harder to get into that one. Aang and Zuko's little mini fight is more entertaining than it's more entertaining than the prison break, I guess. Yeah, I'll put it there. Deserter is really cool. This is where we get to see that not all people of the Fire Nation are evil. Zhong Zhong is a really neat character. We get to see a lot of the philosophy of the dangers of firebending. We get to see Aang kind of be a little arrogant and pay for it. And then this is of course where he gets his fear of firebending and he finally starts to get a sense of gravity of, hey, bending can be really dangerous. I have to treat it really carefully. And also getting more of a Zhao's character, just seeing that he was Zhong Zhong's student, and then he is the polar opposite of what Zhong Zhong is, and then demonstrating how dangerous it can be to try to learn firebending without restraint or control, which is really neat. I would probably put it around Blue Spirit. I go above because this is really neat. Yeah, this feels right. The stakes of the show as a whole probably just go above this, but the philosophy of the dangers of firebending, but you'll be fine if you learn to control it as well is really neat. Northern Air Temple is kind of whatever. The only lasting thing that happens with this is we get the mechanist way later on in season 3 for the submarines, and then this is where the Fire Nation steals the designs for the airships. The episode in and of itself really isn't all that impactful. I mean, you just have people who have inhabited the Northern Air Temple for themselves, kind of disrespectfully, but it's compared to all the other episodes around it, it's not all that great. I'm putting it above King of Omashu. Don't know if I want to put it above Imprisoned. Yeah, it's not all that impressive. Waterbending Master. This is where we get to the north, and then right before the invasion of the Northern Water Tribe, we really get to see getting introduced to Northern Water Tribe culture and the problems that that'll present for the gang is really really neat. Paku is dead set in his ways, and they have to find a way to get around that. That is a really neat concept that they went with. And then, of course, setting up the stakes for the invasion. Above Avatar Returns, definitely. But above Blue Spirit because the cultural battles here and the characters having to improve themselves is really neat. Deserter, yeah, I'll put it above Deserter, but not above Southern Air Temple. But this is just great. And then the Siege of the North, both parts in one. Uh and it just such good stuff started to the conclusion to book one. I think the conclusions to some of the other books were better, but this is still a really good one. We really get to see Aang come into his own as a waterbender, especially in union with the ocean spirits. Uh, Zuko and Iroh finally having to come to terms with what they can do. Ooh, I think this definitely goes above the waterbending masters. I think it goes above. Honestly, this may go above Avatar Roku for me. Siege of the North was really good. You get the conclusion to a lot of setups from the first character arcs. Yeah, I think I'm putting this just underneath the storm. The siege, it was just so good. The payoff to most of season 1, setup for season 2, really great. Avatar States, big introduction to Azula, the Earth Kingdom trying to take advantage of Aang, saying, "Hey, you're ready to fight the Fire Lord as long as you can get angry enough." And he's like, you're crazy." And then all the things that happen with that. Under the Siege, of course. Azula's introduction was really, really cool, seeing what Zuko has to work up to if he wants to overcome these challenges. Probably put it just under Avatar Roku, I think. Yeah, I'll do that. Cave of Two Lovers. This is the meme episode. And everybody knows Secret Tunnel and all the rest of that comes out. This is really just the setup of you get a cool earthbending legend out of it, and we get to see the Badger Moles who were the first earthbenders. But it's really just the setup for the return to Omashu of how deep the Fire Nation has gotten into the Earth Kingdom, even if they can take big cities like Omashu. The episode itself is kind of whatever. I mean, you get a little development on Aang and Katara's relationship with each other, but nothing all that terribly special. Uh, nah, it's going underneath Jets. May go under Spirit World. I care about it more than the Kyoshi Warriors. The origin is kind of neat. Nah, Kyoshi Warriors gives us a neat little stake in it. I'd rather watch it than the Waterbending Scrolls, though, so I'm going to put it right about there. Return to Omashu is where the gang first meets Azula's gang. And boy, do they get an introduction. Neat stakes, Boomy set up for Aang's earthbending teacher. A lot of neat stuff happens here. I think we're going around the deserter here. Put it above the blue spirits. Should I leave it here? Honestly, I may put it above here. Yeah, the neat setup for the earthbending arc as a whole is really neat. The swamp, this one really only serves to further foreshadow Toph's appearance. The episode as a whole really isn't all that interesting. I may put it underneath the pilot, honestly, because it's kind of whatever. I'd rather watch Bato. Yeah, I think I'll put it here. That feels right. Avatar Day is a neat little murder mystery of the past thing going on. We get an appearance from Kyoshi. We get to learn a neat story about her interaction with Chin the Conqueror and how both Chin's people and Kyoshi's people get to interact. But otherwise, not all that interesting. The Rough Rhino fight is kind of boring. Uh, it's a pretty weak episode. I'm gonna be honest. We're looking around the Northern Air Temple of the Imprisoned. The Kyoshi backstory is kind of neat though, and the whole thing behind the Kyoshi warriors and all that. Probably above in prison. Yeah, that feels about right. The Blind Bandit, Toph's introduction and the fights that happen with that. Just overall great episode. You get the WWE ripoff, the Boulders introduction. Who, fun fact, was actually supposed to be voiced by Dwayne Johnson, but he could not do it, unfortunately. It's going above this. It's above the Waterbending Masters. I think it's above the Avatar state, honestly. Yeah, I'm gonna put it right about here. The stakes for the show as a whole, I think, go just above this, but this is overall a really good episode. Zuko alone is going right to the top. This is one of the top episodes of the series. It's just mwah, chef's kiss, beautiful. It's I don't think I need to justify this. This is usually people's number one episodes. I'll see if it's my number one by the end of it, but it's just beautiful. The chase. We finally get Azula and her gang going after the actual gang. Um, the moments of tension between the characters are kind of neat, and then we get to see a few neat interactions of other characters. Toph and Iroh have a nice moment. Uh, the fight in the village is kind of neat, but overall, not phenomenal, but not terrible. Might put the Blue Spirit above it just because the foreshadowing of Aang and Zuko is a little bit better. Yeah, that feels right. I'll leave it there for now, and I'll change it if I need to. Bitter Work, Aang's introduction to earthbending, the funny comedic side thing with Sokka getting stuck in the hole, and then really neat interactions with Iroh and Zuko. Zuko kind of learning Iroh's philosophy on the four elements and the four nations, and then we see the turmoil take root in Zuko as to why he can't master lightning bending. Overall, really neat episode. We get to learn a lot more about the philosophy behind the four nations, Zuko's stubbornness and bitterness. Really good parallels to how Aang is kind of a prodigy whenever he starts to learn something, and then Zuko can kind of struggle with it, and he's had to come into his own. Um, put it Probably above Avatar State. Not above Toph's introduction. Toph's introduction was really neat, but this was a really good the parallel episodes with Aang and Zuko or just Avatar and the Fire Lord in general usually go really well. A library. Ooh, we get to learn. Zhao actually foreshadowed this a little earlier in the series. This is where we get the plan of hope with the Day of Black Sun. Wan Shitong is a really cool, threatening, menacing dude who just wants to protect his knowledge. I hate so much what they did with Wan Shitong in Legend of Korra. They did him so dirty in that, kind of turning him into a moron. But in here, he really feels like a threatening spirit of knowledge. He's menacing. He's just like not wanting to take sides. I don't care about your wars, even if they're terrible. I just care about protecting what I love. It's just so neat. And of course, the setup for searching for Appa. Um, Probably above. Honestly, it may be above Bitter Work for me. This episode's just really, really cool. The setup, the Wan Shi Tong is just really neat. I'm honestly gonna put it above. Yeah, I'm gonna put it above Blind Band. This feels appropriate, just under the stakes for the show as a whole. We get a little mini stake side quest of having to find Appa, and then the setup for the Day of Black Sun. That feels appropriate. The deserts. This one kind of suffers from the fact that this is just a it's got to follow up the library, which is really good, and then we just kind of see the characters trying to get out of the immediately terrible situation they found themselves in. Uh, the moment where Aang finds the Sandbenders, though, it kind of carries this episode. That interaction is really neat. You get to see pacifist Aang kind of start to go whole hog there, and he's ready to throw some hands with those Sandbenders before Katara holds him back. As that was a neat part of the episode, and then of course the humor with the cactus juice never gets old. That's always a funny scene. I never fail to enjoy that. I want to say it's going to go right around here between Bitterwork and Blind Bandit. Yeah, that feels appropriate for now. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Serpent's Pass. This one really just kind of sets up the drill. Coming up next, you get the return of Suki. We get a little bit of development from Aang. Kind of going the opposite of what he was in the previous episode. The previous episode, he's all fire and fury, and then this one, he's not really letting himself feel anything over losing Appa. So that's really just the flip side of that coin for the extremes. Not as strong, unfortunately. The interactions with a lot of characters aren't really as meaningful and don't really feel as weighted. Probably put it under Blue Spirits. Under the Chase, probably. Honestly, this episode's not really as neat. Uh Honestly, it's gonna go back even further. I don't really care about this episode as much. The introduction to the spirit world is honestly cooler. So this is this episode's going a little bit further back than I thought. So there we are. The drill. This one is pretty neat. We get the big chance to try and break through Bossing Say. We got the gang trying to stop it. Zula and the gang come back. We have another fight with them. It's neat. The fight scenes are kind of whatever. They're not going to break through Bossing Say this early, so it's really hard to get as invested. Uh Kind of weaker episode, honestly. Put it under Avatar Returns, probably. That feels right. City of Walls and Secrets. Man, just the there is no war in Bossing Say. Hi, I'm Judy's. Oh man, so good. You really get to see the underbelly of Bossing Say and what's going on at work in the shadows. Just the Dai Li at work behind the background there is just really neat. That's as cool as Wan Shi Tong is. That's probably going above him. Honestly, may go above Avatar Roku. Is it above Siege of the North? Siege of the North resolves a lot. It's really neat. It's probably going right up here. Okay, let's lay down some ground rules for the Tales of Ba Sing Se, and I know a lot of you are worried with me starting to say that. Let me explain. I'm going to state the obvious. Yes, the Tale of Iroh is the best couple minutes of show that this show has to offer. That's inarguable. However, should that one segment carry the entire episode when every single other one of these, except for maybe the Tale of Zuko, is just so either meaningless or forgettable? The Tale of Zuko is really neat. I think Zuko should have ended up with that, with whatever her name is. Sorry, it's been a bit since I've seen this episode, but Zuko should have ended up with that chick instead of May or whatever else happens in the comics. But that was a neat tale. The tale of Aang is kind of whatever. It's not important. Tale of Katara and Toph is not important, and then the tale of Sokka is just forgettable. Like, should the tale of Iroh carry the entire episode to the forefront? And I don't necessarily think so. I honestly want to break up this episode into their individual tales, but that wouldn't necessarily be genuine to the entirety of the episode. So, ranking it as a whole, it's obviously going up pretty high, but the bad parts of the Tales of Ba Sing Se are going to lower this. Now, if we're just talking about the Tale of Iroh, then yes, this would be at the forefront. This would be the best episode in the series. However, I have to weigh it against the really bad parts of this episode, like the Tale of Sokka, which are just forgettable. Although, having said that, I can't do it too dirty, so I'm probably going to put it down here beneath the storm. Again, if we were just talking the Tale of Iroh, this would be number one. But I gotta take the other parts of the episode into consideration, so it's gonna go down a little bit. All right? Don't hate me. Anyway, Appa's Lost Days is another one of the best episodes in the series. I like the storm a little bit better because we get a lot of the parallels between Aang and Zuko. Yeah, it's going there. Appa's Lost Days is one of the best episodes in the series. I don't think I had to justify that. Lake Laogai is just another great episode. We get to see book two's got a lot of really good episodes in it. Starting to look at a lot of these. We get the resolution to a lot of the brainwashing things, the undoing of the Dai Li. They find Appa. We get to really see Iroh push Zuko on his philosophy. You know, who are you and what is it that you want? Man, so good. I'm probably putting this. Yeah, this is going above Siege of the North, and I think it's gonna. These are like the top dogs of the series so far. I can't justify putting it above this, but it's just really, really good episode. The Earth King. We get the beginnings of the invasion plan. The Battle of the Palace is kind of whatever. We get the introduction to the possibility of invading the Fire Nation with the Earth King's armies, the exposure of the Dai Li. It's not as captivating as kind of the rest of these, honestly. It's going to go down kind of far here. It's, honestly, may go down beneath it. Yeah, it's going to go beneath the chase. I mean, this is kind of just one of those setup episodes that's setting up the bigger things to come later on in the series, so it suffers from that, but still kind of neat for what it is. The Guru. This is, of course, centered around Aang trying to fully unlock the Avatar state. We get a couple of really neat side stories, like Azula's gang infiltrating the Kyoshi warriors and planning the coup. Really, really just solid episode overall. I don't know if I put it above Toph's introduction because that's just really good. Um, Aang kind of trying to go whole hog in the desert is really funny. Put it around here. Probably going to go either before or above this. Again, this is like a pseudo setup episode for the big finale of season 2, so I'll leave it here for now. Yeah, that seems. I'll come back to it if I need to. Crossroads of Destiny is one of my favorite episodes of the series. Just the sheer payoff of a lot of the things that were set up. The just it never fails to impress me and make me have chills whenever the Earth King says the Earth Kingdom has fallen, and just the sheer hopelessness you feel for the characters of, hey, if Ba Sing Se can fall, can you really even win the war? Like, it's just so good. The ideological battle within Zuko between Azula and Iroh, the fight that happens with that, just, oh man, that fight was so good as well. Oh man, I don't want to put it above some of these. I think I have to put it above Appa's Lost Days. I got to put it above the Storm too. I think Zuko alone just barely comes above it, but it's just, man, it's just so good. Is and again, remember what I'm doing with Tales of Boxing. Say this would be number one if it were only the Tale of Iroh, but I have to weigh the bad parts of the episode as well. So that's why it is where it is. Just don't worry. Um, mm, Man, now I'm even second guessing myself. I kind of want to put this above Zuko alone. Ugh, I don't know if I can justify that though. No, I don't think I can. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. The Awakening, the first part of season 3, we kind of learn a little bit of what happens in the aftermath. Fire Nation's starting to take over. Nobody knows that Aang is alive. He's resentful for that. This is really just kind of the setup for season 3 as a whole. It's kind of a little bit weaker in regard to that. Uh this one's gonna go kind of low, unfortunately. I think just above the introduction to the spirit world in Avatar Roku is kind of neat. I'm gonna put it above Serpent's Pass. The headband, the gang starts off their journey undercover in the Fire Nation. Aang being at school is neat, but like, it's refreshing to see a little bit of Aang's goofy side, trying to be a normal kid. That's cool, but nah, not really all that memorable in terms of the show as a whole. It's definitely above all of these. Don't know if it's above Serpent's Pass though, because the ideological struggle going on with Aang is kind of whatever. In that it's a little neat in that for Aang, but this one just kind of his goofy side's a little bit more fun, I guess. And you get to see the neat aspect of the other Fire Nation kids just having been raised on Fire Nation propaganda their entire life and what that looks like. That's pretty neat from viewing Fire Nation culture, I guess. Um, yeah, I'll put it just above Awakening. Honestly, just getting to see the lighthearted side of that with the contrast of Zuko trying to come into his own, and then Aang trying to be a normal kid for once. That's, yeah, I'll do that. Painted Lady is unfortunately one of the worst episodes in the series. I don't even know if I like it more than the Great Divide. I would rather watch The Fortune Teller. I'd rather watch King of Omashu. Um, this one is always a toss up for me as to whether or not the Great Divide or the Painted Lady is worse. Because like every single thing that happens with this is mainly Katara's character. We already know Katara's character workings. This is this is another one of those where it's just as filler episode as fillers can be. It's just not as good, unfortunately, and there's no real setup or payoff for it. I think I'm I think I may put it at under the Great Divide. Yeah, it's just not great, unfortunately. Sokka's master, however, is really really cool. Pian Dao is so neat. Getting to see Sokka become a sword master with a meteorite sword is just so neat, especially when the early parts of the episode kind of make him feel inferior for being a non-bender. I may put it above. A lot of cool stuff happens in Lake Laogai. Yeah, I'm gonna put it here. Pian Dao is just really cool. The meteorite sword is really neat. It's gonna go there. The beach, we actually get the episode of the main quote unquote villain characters. We get to see a lot more of the struggle in Zuko. We get to see the background of characters like Ty Lee, May, even Azula. a little bit, which is really neat to see. I mean, just the one line from her where she kind of frighteningly says, "My own mother thought I was a monster." You just really see, and just throughout this entire episode as a whole, you really get to see the tragic side of these kids don't know how to act in normal society. That's how indoctrinated they are for war and battle from Ozai and the Fire Nation family. So those themes are really, really cool. It's maybe above like Lao Guy on it. Yeah, it's gonna go above like Lao Guy. I just don't know if I. Yeah, I'm gonna, as cool as Piandao is, I'm gonna put it above Sokka's Master. Yeah, this episode is surprisingly cool. The Avatar and the Fire Lord. Yeah, this is easily going over this. Um, it may. Yeah, it's going above. I think I'm gonna put it just under Crossroads of Destiny. Is this episode is just so good. You get to see the origin of the entire war, Avatar and Roku's relationships, how it parallels to Aang and Zuko. Man, it's just so good. I don't think I have to justify this one. This is another top dog of the series. The Runaway is kind of like a it has a side episode kind of feel to it. Just the side scamming of people. The only real neat thing that happens in this episode is the interactions with Combustion Man is obviously really neat. But getting to see how Sokka feels about Katara, saying how tragic it is that he can't even remember his own mother's face, and that Katara's is all he pictures. That was a really neat interaction with that. But unfortunately, that and the interactions with Combustion Man are really the only neat things that happen in the episodes. So it kind of suffers from the other kind of forgettable half of the episode. I'd put the chase above it. Put the Earth King above it, honestly. Avatar Returns. Yeah, I'll put it here. Yeah, that feels right. And honestly, I'm gonna move Jet up I'm gonna move Jet just above it because you really get to see how the Fire Nation interacts deals with people with this and what they do to people's mindset in that episode. That's really neat. I'm gonna move that one up. The Puppet Master, who introduction to bloodbending, but unfortunately, that's all the episode kind of has going for it. It's neat to see another Southern waterbender and what happens to her as a result of that. But I really do think that the bloodbending fight is kind of dumb. Like my bending is more powerful than yours. That's I really don't like how that works in the show. Bending is just supposed to be bending. You're supposed to be more skilled than your opponent. You're not supposed to be like, oh it just turns into a my power level is higher than yours. You know the old they kind of went a little Dragon Ball in that aspect, and I'm not really as much of a fan of that. But bloodbending as a whole is just really neat. Um, I'm gonna put it underneath. Yeah, I'm putting it underneath these. Might put it underneath the Guru. I think just under the Guru sounds fine. Nah, I'm putting the desert above it. And probably bitter work. This is just going more and more down, unfortunately. I think ultimately I'm gonna put it underneath Return of Omashu for now. Introduction to Bloodbending is fine, but everything else in the episode is just kind of whatever. So it's yeah. Nightmares and Daydreams is another one of those filler-esque episodes. It's gonna go kind of low. I'd honestly probably rather watch Fortune Teller just for the parallels to Avatar Roku with the volcano. Yeah, I'm gonna put it there, unfortunately. The Day of Black Sun, the invasion of the Fire Nation. Man, this is gonna be pretty high up for the most part. This is, I mean, the fulfillment of most of season 2 and the beginning parts of season 3, and then just the absolute soul crushing nature of having that all fail because Azula knew the entire time. I mean, if Crossroads of Destiny was a moment of hopelessness, this is just like, all right, how do we win the war? from here if we failed at our best chance. And just the interactions with the fight with Azula, the interaction between Ozai and Zuko, just the payoff for that, it's just so good. Um, I'm gonna put it above the Siege of the North, definitely. Probably above. Yeah, I'm gonna put it above like Laogai and Sokka's Master. Not above the beach though. Getting the character moments is really nice. This feels like a good one. Western Air Temple, where Zuko finally joins the gang and they deal with Combustion Man once and for all. Getting Zuko to try and be good, and of course everybody knows, hello, Zuko here. It never fails to make me laugh. It's just really neat. But other than seeing Zuko try to come into his own as a good guy and then initially get rejected and then try to be good, it's kind of whatever. Probably gonna go underneath Toph's first introduction, honestly. Yeah, that feels correct. I'll change it if I need to. Firebending Masters, getting this is just so neat. The introduction to how firebending is supposed to be. The two dragons still alive, learning that Iroh was the last one to find them. Seeing Zuko firebend for the right reasons. Seeing Aang come into his own. This is really neat. I will probably put this above Sokka's Master. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. The Boiling Rock of the Zuko journey episodes, this is probably the weakest. This really just gets us Suki and Hakoda back, and the interactions with between Zuko and May are neat, and then Azula being betrayed by her friends really leads to some neat stuff. Although I am not a fan of the rapid decline in Azula's mental state, which is where this stems from, so that kind of drops this down for me, unfortunately. Wan Shi Tong is cooler, Toph's cooler. I kind of like the Western Air Temple more so than this. The Guru and the Desert are better. Man, this one's gonna drop down kind of far, unfortunately. I think Return to Omashu is a little bit better. I'm gonna put it under probably the Puppet Master. Yeah, this feels right. Zhong is neat, and Aang's fear of firebending is kind of cool, but there's neat interactions with this that last for the rest of the show. Yeah, I'll do that. Southern Raiders. This one's really neat. We get to see the full origin behind Katara's mother. We get to this is probably one of the better Zuko field trip. Love that everybody just kind of universally accepts that it's the Zuko field trip ones. This is really good. Getting to see the man who killed Katara's mom, see her want to kill him but reluctantly take Aang's advice to not kill him. Uh, a moment of dark Katara is really neat. This is definitely the best of the Zuko journey ones. I don't know if it's better than the invasion though. I'm gonna put it just under the invasion because the invasion was really good. Ember Island players. This one's gonna be low down, but it's really weird. It's a recap episode, but it's also really important because it's a Fire Nation propaganda play. It's You're getting to see a cultural event within the show. You still get a couple neat character interactions like between Toph and Zuko. Aang awkwardly trying to still be in a relationship with Katara, but they're in the middle of a war, so she like doesn't want to feel that right now. Uh, but unfortunately, the as comical as the play is, it's unfortunately just going to drop down and lose kind of its wonder and mysticism. I'm going to drop it down beneath the probably above Kyoshi Warriors. Honestly, if I had to do that, nah, I'm gonna put the Kyoshi Warriors above it because that's where you get the start of Sokka's big arc. Yeah, I'm gonna put it there. All right, the home stretch, the Sozin's Comets episodes. Phoenix King, I think, is definitely the weakest of them. It unfortunately just has the burden of setting it all up, so it's going to be so it's going to lack a little bit in that. Aang disappears. We find the Lion Turtle. Zula is made the Fire Lord. Introduction of the Phoenix King. All that. Unfortunately, this is just kind of the introduction of the stakes for the rest of them. So not really much happens in it. So it's going to suffer as a result. So it's going to drop down pretty low, unfortunately. Um, I mean, we're looking around kind of here, honestly. Yeah, probably just above the Serpent's Pass, I think. Yeah, if I were ranking these as a whole, it would go up higher. But like I said, these deserve to be treated as their own individual episodes, and this one unfortunately just had the burden of setting the rest of them up. The old masters. We get to find the White Lotus again. We get Aang interacting with his past lives, and that ends up being really neat because even his own pacifist past lives are telling him, hey, you kind of need to kill this guy. I know you don't want to kill anybody, but Ozai kind of needs to die. And just Zuko's reunion with Iroh, the setup for the retaking of Ba Sing Se and the fight with the Fire Lord is really good. Uh Put it above. It's above the siege and Lake Laogai. Yeah, I'll put it above Sokka's Master. I think it's yeah, I'll go above the Firebending Masters as well. Yeah, this feels correct right there. Into the Inferno, the start of Aang's fight against Ozai, the retaking of Ba Sing Se, Zuko versus Azula. Unfortunately, this is going to be go down a little bit lower for me because one, I am not a fan of, as I said earlier, I am not a fan of Azula's rapid mental state. I think they should have done that a lot better. And two, I think that Zuko should have gotten a genuine win against Azula. Having Katara win is just as good, but I think Zuko deserved a genuine win that he earned after all of his character development and after all his hard work to do it. The Aang versus Ozai fight that was built up the entire series, and it was just beautiful. The portions of the Zuko Azula fight that we get were just superb. So I gotta give it to that. Um, it's definitely going above the beach. I don't know if it goes above the weaker parts of Tales of Ba Sing Se. No, I'll do here. I feel bad enough having to put Tales of Ba Sing Se this low, but again, I have to rank the episode as a whole. I would be putting this much higher if I did, but yeah, just all the moments that we get in that are just so good. And then Avatar Aang, the grand conclusion to the show, the wrapping up of everything. Aang and Katara finally get together. Ozai's defeated. Unfortunately, this one is going to suffer because I am not a fan of how energy bending came to be. I don't necessarily mind the solution they did, although I would have preferred if Aang had to make a choice and the world had to live with the consequences of that. But I don't necessarily mind energy bending being the solution. I am just not a fan of how basically not set up that it was. I mean, literally the only other interactions we get with energy bending were Aang accidentally did it in the swamp to find Appa and Momo. The Guru did it to send Appa on his way to Aang in Ba Sing Se. And then literally like 2 episodes before this when Aang meets the Lion Turtle and gets the energy bending from him to stop Ozai. That is like nothing. And it's just it just feels like such a cop out after the really neat setup of the other episode of Aang struggling with his past lives. You know, his pacifist past lives are telling him, "Hey, I'm not a fan of killing either, but like you kind of need to kill this guy." And then Aang just gets the perfect solution, kind of out of nowhere with minimal setup. So like, I'm fine with it, but does feel like a bit of a cop out. Um, that being said, they wrapped up everything kind of nicely, but it's gonna suffer a little bit. I think I got to put it above. Yeah, it's just above Toph's introduction, but just under Wan Shi Tong and all the setup for the invasion with the library. Yeah, I gotta do it there. It would again if energy bending had been set up a little bit better, then I probably would put it higher. But I just can't justify it more than that because either you're a fan of energy bending being shoehorned in there or you're not. I just so happen to be a person who is not. I think that if it were set up a little bit better, then the show would have benefited from it. But they did the best they could, I guess, and overall it was still a really good show. So that is it, I guess. This is I'm sure it's fine as is. If I went back and did this tier list again on a different day, I'm sure I would rearrange these in a different order. Like I almost considered putting Crossroads as my favorite episode, and I'm tempted to do that now. But Zuko alone is just that good of an episode. Um, yeah, this feels like a good place to do that. So happy you were all able to tune in for this. Good to take a little break from Yu-Gi-Oh. I really like doing these little side videos, and I hope you like these being uploaded as well. And beyond that, if I am if I am dead wrong on any of these, if you think that Painted Lady should be in like the second row, if you're mad that I weighed the Tales of Bossing Say as an entire episode instead of just the Tale of Iroh, I'll respond to whatever you had to say in the comments. Go ahead and put whatever you want there. But beyond that, thanks for tuning in and have a good rest of the day.